Good early afternoon. We are live here on the Blue Plate Special. I'm Andy Andrews, and we're in Orange Beach, Alabama. Beautiful, sunny, pretty hot day here at Wisdom Harbor Studios at the wharf. And we wish you were here. We're going to be open here Thanksgiving weekend. We're actually going to open the studios and the little store out here and everything. So, hey, Diane Hale from Tennessee. Rob Mitchell from Murfreesboro. Hey, buddy, how are you? Patricia Clapp from North Carolina. Sherry Cummins from DFW. What are you from, D or FW? I know you guys make a point. You know, I could say, are you from Dallas? I'm from Fort Worth. But I get that because we do that here. Are you from Gulf Shores? No, I'm from Orange Beach. And, you know, so. And here, Chet Calhoun from Dallas, Georgia. How about that? John Jones from Auburn. I'm amazed that SB even recognized you. SB is such an Alabama fan. But, you know. Who's from Indiana? Who is that from Indiana? Julian Gilly. Hey, I knew your brother Mickey. We got a very cool show today. I'm going to read a little bit. I'm going to make an announcement, and we are going to talk about the anniversary of the Gettysburg Address and what it means today, what it meant then, what people thought about it. Elijah from Nigeria. Wow. Hey, buddy. And Tracy from Oregon, another foreign country. Dolores from South Bend, Indiana, a third foreign country. Wow, just amazing. Hey, don't forget, you guys, click that notification button if you're new to us and you're on Facebook. Click the notification button and make sure you turn your notification thing on your phone so that when we go live, hey, Irene, that you can be notified. And also, if you're on YouTube, please press that subscribe button, that red subscribe button. Hi, Instagram. How are you guys doing? And the Twitterverse. Also, you guys, please share this, okay? I think this is going to be a cool show to share. And if you're on Facebook, you can just press that share button right there, and it'll give you options, and it'll say to your page, and yes, share to your page. That way, what you are watching live here will be live on your page. So Eva Jean Hodge from Elkin, North Carolina says, love the shirt. Do you like the shirt? I really like this shirt. This is a shirt that is from the Sand Dollar Lifestyles store, which is the cornerstone store of the wharf. And just a beautiful big place right there. And this is it's a Life is Good shirt. Let it beagle. Shirley Greenfield Cole from Amarillo. And you're right. 200 miles from everywhere. Anytime you're driving in Texas, anytime. It's like you're 200 miles from Amarillo. It's amazing. Jeff Herring, how are you doing, buddy? Good to see you. It's great to see all my friends on here. Appreciate you joining me. And let me make an announcement really quickly. And then we're going to get to the meat of the program. The coffee is evidently just like a hit. Hey, Kevin Perkins. Hey, old man. Christy, my sister. Hey. You know, I am still just kind of shocked because I didn't really think I liked coffee anymore. And so the Just Jones Java, hey, Kevin Dean, is just unbelievable. It's not acidy tasting. It's not, it doesn't have that bitter taste at all. It's just very good. It's the only coffee in the world infused with a healthy dose of perspective. And it's a no whiners type coffee. And so, as I think you know, I got a brand new announcement here, but as I think you know, this beautiful bag of coffee, an impossibly good coffee from the Rainforest Alliance certified farms of Central and South America. It's perfectly roasted blend delights. It delights with a perfectly roasted. That's a perfectly roasted blend delights with a rich aroma, a smooth profile, and a pronounced, well-rounded finish. It's the Noticer blend, and I think the first bag of coffee is $14.95, which kind of seems like a lot. But as soon as you get your first bag, you get a lifetime coupon for $3 off. And so all your coffee from then on is it's $11.95, isn't it? That's right. If my math is correct. All your coffee from then on is $11.95. However, Dan Stone came up with a great idea, and we're actually going to do. And Dan Stone is our first, okay, but we're going to do a monthly subscription, so you can get a bag just delivered every month, or 2 bags or 3 bags or whatever you do every month, and it'll be 30% off. It'll be $10.50 a bag for the subscription price. And we're really excited about this because I would come in every morning and go, man, more people order coffee. And so we're excited. And I know you think that, caffeine is the last thing Andy needs. But, hey, see the countdown clock? 51 days, 11 hours, 37 minutes, and some such seconds left to go in 2020. Be glad to get rid of her. Hey, before I read, I wanted to make sure you're aware. Do you see the different pictures behind me, right? We did a podcast, and it just came out today, just this morning, and the Professional Noticer podcast, our guest is Gulf Coast Nation. It's Adam and Dylan. And I got to tell you, it was one of the most fascinating conversations I have had with anybody. Listening to them talk about catching sharks from the beach. And you can see, so we left the pictures up. We had the pictures up for them. And so I told Matt, I said, man, let's leave the pictures up so that when we do the first blue plate after doing this, the pictures still be up. There is Adam releasing a 12-foot hammerhead. I mean, no. Where's the hammerhead? Hammerhead picture's down there. But that's a 12-foot tiger shark. And in July, they landed their clients. I mean, they take people fishing from the beach. It's just nuts. And in July, they had, 12 sharks over 10 feet long and 5 sharks over 12 feet long. And the ones over 12 feet are 1,000 pounds or more. And so that's the tag details from this one. There's Adam with some little kids. Little kids just love Adam. What else we got up there? There's Adam and Dylan. There's Adam with a big shark. Adam hooked up to one. But they take tons. But Teresa Height has already listened to the podcast. She said it's awesome. And Patricia Clapp has listened. I'm glad. I haven't heard it yet, but and you ought to watch it. Okay, I mean, I'll just tell you, watch it because it posts on YouTube and it posts on our site andyandrews.com because we put a bunch of video in there as they were talking about something. You know, Matt just edited in video of what they were doing, and it's just crazy. All right, so today is the anniversary week. Okay, it's the anniversary week of the Gettysburg Address, not of the Battle of Gettysburg, but of the address. And it was actually November 19th is when it happened. And November 19th is my anniversary, Polly and my anniversary. So I knew that I would not be doing the show that day. And so I wanted to talk about this. And I thought I would start by reading a part in The Traveler's Gift where David Ponder has visited Lincoln. If you haven't ever read The Traveler's Gift, it's a story about a guy going through the worst time of his life, and he gets to, I won't tell you how it all happens, but he gets to travel through time, meeting with historical figures, 7 historical figures who are also going through the worst time in their lives. And so he gets to be with Lincoln in the tent the day he is about to make the Gettysburg Address. He gets to be with Anne Frank in the annex. Like 4 months earlier, he was at Gettysburg with Joshua Chamberlain during the battle. Gets to be with King Solomon, right after Solomon, he gets to watch Solomon say, "Bring me the sword and I'll tell you whose baby this is." So anyway, I want to read you this small part before we talked about Lincoln and what really happened that day. But this is from the chapter, and so David Ponder has already been inside the tent for a little while with Lincoln, and Lincoln's secretary came in, and nobody but the person that the traveler is going to visit can see him. And so the secretary did not see him, and Lincoln had almost forgotten that they couldn't see him. And so now the guy has left. His name is John Hay. And so Ponder says, "Before your secretary entered, you were talking about your part in this ceremony today." "Yes." Lincoln's smile disappeared as he cleared his throat. "Yes, today we take pause from our battles to dedicate one ugly reality of this war, a cemetery. There are quite a few of them around now, as you must know, certainly more than I can dedicate." Lincoln frowned and continued, "There were more than 50,000 casualties here. They say blood and gore ran in rivulets on the ground." He was quiet for a moment, and then brightening, he said, "I have Grant now. This will not last much longer." "Are you winning the war?" David asked. "We weren't, I can tell you that. But after this battle, Gettysburg, last July, the outcome seems much brighter indeed." David suddenly had a thought and asked, "Mr. President, are you familiar with an officer in your army by the name of Colonel Joshua Chamberlain? He's with the 20th Maine." Lincoln cocked his head and thought briefly, then said slowly, "No, I don't believe so. Should I know this man?" "Maybe. He fought here at Gettysburg. When you return to Washington, you might look him up." The president nodded. "I have another question," David continued. "Do you believe that God is on your side?" Lincoln looked at David thoughtfully. "On September 22nd of last year, I signed a proclamation of emancipation for all slaves, specifying that they will be henceforward and forever free. The timing of that gesture is still the subject of some debate. One of my cabinet members made it known to anyone who would listen that a vast majority of the public stood against me and my intention to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. My platform, however, is that while public opinion might sway back and forth, right and wrong do not. If we familiarize ourselves with the chains of bondage, we prepare our own limbs to wear them. The spirit of our government and our institutions must be to elevate people, and I am opposed to whatever degrades them. I am of the opinion that right makes might. Therefore, I signed the document, and now we will enforce its effectiveness. So your question was, do I believe that God is on our side? To be quite honest, I haven't given that question very much attention. I am much more concerned with whether or not we are on God's side." David remembered something Lincoln had said earlier. "You mentioned Grant," he prompted. "Why will he make such a difference?" "Because he cares as I do," came the reply. "It has taken me almost 3 years to find a general officer whom I don't have to watch over like a nursemaid. Winfield Scott was my first general-in-chief, then McDowell, followed by Fremont, then the disastrous McClellan. Can you imagine? In McClellan, I had a commander of the entire Union Army who refused to engage the enemy. After McClellan, I appointed Henry Halleck. Halleck is a graduate of West Point and has even written a book on military tactics. I read it last year before his appointment. Fine book, good theory, but books don't fight wars. The man evaded all personal responsibility, lost what little composure he brought to the task, and became nothing more than a first-rate clerk. McClernand was next, and all he did was complain about the other generals. It was the odd week I didn't receive a long, rambling communication critical of something Sherman or Grant had done. After McClernand, I suffered through Rosecrans, then Burnside, and finally Nathaniel P. Banks. Naturally, the day I announced my intention to promote General Grant, I was vilified in the press. Actually, many people have been pushing for Grant's dismissal, but I can't spare this man. He fights. I've heard it said that he drinks too much. Well, if I can find out exactly what he's drinking, I'll send a few cases to the other generals." So, it was November 19th. And Lincoln was in the tent with David Ponder. His secretary, John Hay, was in and out. If you want to research somebody that was there for just everything forever, I mean, just research John Hay sometime. But when we regard this in this day, you have to look back to July 1st. July 1st to July 3rd, 1863, the invading forces there of General Lee, Robert E. Lee, his Confederate Army, fought the Army of the Potomac. They were led by General George Meade in Gettysburg. And Gettysburg was a small town 35 miles southwest of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Most of the guys who fought there had never heard of the town. Casualties were high on both sides. Roughly 170,000 Union and Confederate soldiers. There were 23,000 Union casualties. This is more than 1/4 of the Army. And 28,000 Confederate casualties, more than 1/3 of Lee's army that were in the Battle of Gettysburg. Now, after 3 days of battle, Lee retreated toward Virginia on the night of July 4th. In the Chamberlain chapter of The Traveler's Gift, you can read about the actual battle and how it was saved by the Union. But when Lee retreated, the thousands of soldiers killed at Gettysburg were quickly buried, most of them in poorly marked graves. But in the months that followed, there was a local attorney that worked to create a national cemetery at Gettysburg. By the way, do you know the difference in a cemetery and a graveyard? A graveyard is behind a church, but a cemetery stands alone. The Gettysburg Cemetery Commission was what was originally set, and they picked October 23rd as the date for the cemetery's dedication, but they delayed it to mid-November because their choice for a speaker, a guy named Edward Everett, said that he needed more time to prepare. Everett was the former president of Harvard College, former U.S. Senator, former Secretary of State. He's one of the country's leading speakers. Everybody knew who he was. And on November 2nd, just a couple of weeks before the event, the commission also extended an invitation to President Lincoln asking him if he would make a few appropriate remarks. So on the morning of November 19th, Everett delivered a 2-hour speech from memory on the Battle of Gettysburg and its significance, and then an orchestra and a choir played a hymn that had been composed for the occasion. And there were 15,000 people there, no microphones, no speakers. Lincoln, with his voice, which is a higher pitch than most movies have shown. It was all the research shows they had a higher pitched voice, a tenor voice, which makes sense when you think about it, because to be heard by 15,000 people, it would have to be something that really like cuts through the air. And so Lincoln rose after the hymn and went to the podium to address this crowd of 15,000 people. He spoke for less than 2 minutes. Right now, Edward Everett had spoken for 2 hours. Here's the President of the United States gets up, speaks less than 2 minutes. The entire speech was fewer than 275 words long. And he began by invoking the image of the Founding Fathers and their new nation. And Lincoln expressed his conviction that the war that they were still fighting, they were still engaged in this war, was the ultimate test of whether the United States of America that was created in 1776 would even survive. And he talked about how the dead at Gettysburg had laid down their lives for this noble cause, and it was up to the living to confront the great task before them, ensuring that a government of the people might live on for their children and their grandchildren. And the essential themes and even some of the language of the Gettysburg Address were not really new. Lincoln himself, in his July 1861 message, because the war just began, his 1861 message to Congress, he had referred to the United States as a democracy, a government of the people by the same people. So he'd already said that. But the radical aspect of this speech, of the Gettysburg Address, however, it began with Lincoln's assertion that the Declaration of Independence contained the Founding Fathers' intentions for their new nation. See, at that time, there were a lot of slave owners who had declared themselves to be true Americans. According to Lincoln, however, the nation that formed in 1776 was dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. It was an interpretation that was radical at the time. But now, it's just like taken for granted. Lincoln's address, though, it redefined the Civil War as a struggle not just for the union of the states, but also for the principle of human equality. And here's what he said. 87 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here. but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work with they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. In the years to come, the Gettysburg Address would endure as arguably the most quoted, most memorized piece of oratory in American history. After Lincoln's assassination in April 1865, Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts wrote about the address, and he said, "That speech, uttered at the field of Gettysburg, and now sanctified by the martyrdom of its author, is a monumental act. In the modesty of his nature, he said, the world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. The president was mistaken. He said, the world at once noted what he said and will never cease to remember it." An amazing time. I see comments coming on the screen now. People are going to share this with their children, share it with their grandchildren, share it with their families. Sherry Cummins memorized it in junior high for a program. And, somebody asked me not too long ago who I would vote for president. And I said Abraham Lincoln, but he won't run again. I do really like Lincoln. And if you want to see, to me, the premier movie about him is Lincoln. It was made by Steven Spielberg, and Daniel Lewis played Lincoln. And it is a tremendous, tremendous movie. We are, engaged again in an atmosphere of anger. And in the coming days, I want to talk about forgiveness. I think that's probably the only answer there is. I'm not talking about an election. I'm talking about just the attitude of people. I would really like to get a hold of whoever that first architect was who designed a house without a front porch, because that was the tipping point, I think. That was when people started, nobody had to sit on their front porch and talk to everybody who walked by at that point. People started retreating to the backyards and then built privacy fences so that only people that they agreed with could actually come in. And then children grew up without listening to their parents disagree agreeably. They grew up without listening to their parents in the art of conversation. And so we've got a lot of people now who for one reason or another, think the only option is to be angry. And I hate that for people, and nobody likes to be have somebody mad at them. But the worst thing is to be angry at something nobody can do anything about, right? I mean, if we've seen family disputes going forever. If your great granddaddy did something to my great granddaddy, I mean, neither one of us can even remember their first names. What are we gonna do about it? I guess you're just gonna have to stay mad. I guess I'm just gonna have to feel bad. I don't know, and that's why I say that I think that forgiveness is the only alternative. Forgiveness is a choice. It's not an emotion. It's a decision, and I think we treat it like an emotion a lot of times, which is why it ends up dragging us around like a dog on a leash. But we'll talk about this more in the coming days. For now, thank you for joining us on another Blue Plate special. I would love for you guys to read Jess Jones, and I would really love for you to spread the word about it and review it on Amazon if you haven't. And I would also love for you to get a subscription of the coffee, of the Just Jones Java. All right. Hey, thank you for joining me today. We'll be back later in the week. Keep an eye out for us, and we will notify you when we're on the air. Bye-bye.